Welcome to the I Love Coaching podcast, where we believe coaching solves everything.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the I Love Coaching podcast. Today, I have a special guest. I have someone that I've been in business with for probably the last, maybe about 3 years. Yep. I've seen this individual grow from the world of leading a real estate brokerage to now the world of leading humans in the coaching space. Not only leading humans in the coaching space, he's also leading himself and his family and choosing to live a life by design. I'm going to let Dan tell you all about that. Though, podcast listeners, let me introduce you to the one and only Dan Demott from Florida. Dan, nice to have you on here, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive right into you. So Sure. Tell us about Dan. You were born, and then what happened?
Yeah, so I always tell everyone, I'm a Florida native, and I'm one of those rare people that has always been in real estate, right? Got my real estate license when I turned 18. My family, my mom and my aunt were in the business, and so it was sort of a natural thing. I got a degree in real estate from Florida Atlantic University here in South Florida, and was really fortunate to get into real estate on the private equity side in the corporate world, and had a great run there. But for lifestyle reasons and sort of having this, entrepreneurial spirit that was never getting the right exercise, decided to transition out of that, go on a sort of journey of entrepreneurial adventures, starting different businesses, all within or around the real estate space, which ultimately led me to building a real estate team and then becoming the team leader for a Keller Williams franchise here in Boynton Beach. And that's when you and I first met.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if I recall, very reluctantly from you, right? No, I'm
yeah.
kidding.
It was an interesting, it's an interesting thing learning to become a leader. Right. And now looking back, I realized that I was building in that direction. Right. And it was that transition from, being an individual real estate agent to building a team and realizing that I got way more satisfaction out of helping those 5 people accomplish their goals than I ever did, doing mine. And then, making that transition from running my team to being the team leader for that brokerage, was scaling that up, right? And going, well, if you really care about these 5 people, what if you go care about these 100 people?
Right.
And that's sort of been this that was the sort of the change in direction for me to go, what I really love is helping people, where I really get the meaning, particularly real estate agents, for a number of reasons, and we can talk about that. But I get so much satisfaction out of that, in helping them grow and be better.
Well, let's talk about that transition. So driven people that like leadership or people that like building could think that going from leading 5 people to over 100 people might not be as challenging as it sounds, though it is challenging, right?
Oh, it's tremendously challenging, and it's because it's a question of scale and it's a question of pressure, and probably that second one is probably more important, right? If you think of the concept of, okay, well, how do you deliver value to 2 or 3 people? It's just much more manageable. Scale that up to 50 people or 100 people. And the variety of needs becomes different. The starting points become different. The goals or endpoints for those individuals become different. And that really ramps up the pressure to figure out, how do you bring value? How do you bring a really wide range of value to people with different needs and different goals and different backgrounds, and do that in a way where you're still caring about them on an individual basis, but also helping them at the macro level. To me, that was the challenge that I loved.
Yeah, and I know you did from being in a coaching relationship with you, and quite frankly, you're and I've said this to you before, though we get to say this now to the world. You're one of the most cerebral guys that I've coached. You are a very provoked type individual that give you an inch, you'll take it a mile and go really deep with that thought. But I want to say in this leadership conversation here.
Yeah.
because sometimes that could paralyze some people that want to really get things right first. And you got to lead on the fly. When you're leading 100 plus people, you have to lead on the fly. So how did you handle that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if being the most cerebral person you've ever coached is a compliment or not. Certainly, there's probably plenty of people who would disagree with that. I think the key is to the key is to realize that there's a time and place for both. You have to be cerebral to have vision, right? Any type of leadership vision of saying we're here and we want to go there, and what are the possible ways to get there? That's a cerebral conversation because it's all imagination. And then the reality of sitting face to face with someone and understanding their concerns and giving them a prescription of how to go from A to B is the complete opposite, right? Very physical. It's very emotional. It's very in the moment. And so I guess probably part of what I enjoy and why I've been successful there is I like to separate those two things. I like to have my time to think about the big picture and where we're going and what are the strategies we implement to be there. But then when I'm face to face with someone, I want to give them my full and undivided attention.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So let's transition now. So you had a great run as a team leader.
Yep.
You grew an office. You brought it to profitability. You had a lot of great challenges while you were in that role. And then you decided that you wanted to step into the coaching space. So tell us about that progression. Tell us about the thought process that went through your head. I know I was there to experience it with you, though. Tell us about what was going on upstairs.
Yeah, there was a number of different factors there, right? Part of it, I think the driving force was twofold. One, a continuation of that path I was already walking, right? The nature of running a real estate franchise, which is geography based, is there's limitations to it, right? And the world we live in today is becoming more and more borderless. In that role, while my ability to connect with someone and help someone in a different state or in another county or whatever was there wasn't a way for me to do that within the model I was in. And so that was a big factor of it. Was I want to help more and more people, but I don't know that I'm in the right vehicle to get there. Monetization was another, that was a conversation we had, plenty of times. There's limitation. Every business model has its limitations and its pros and cons. The one that I was in had a lot of limitations financially because of its structure. And so that was a challenge for me. And then the third thing was lifestyle, right? I've got two beautiful young daughters and an amazing wife who I want to spend as much time as I possibly can with. And the natures of being in an office Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, is you sacrifice the flexibility necessary to maximize time with the family.
That's right.
That was probably the biggest realization to say, we have to go a different path. We have to change.
Right.
I think.
Well, it's really fascinating listening to it from this side and being a part of that experience as you were going through it. Is I remember exactly what you just said there, your brain thinking locally, then regionally, then state, the entire state of Florida. And it's like, how do I get to the Southeast? Then how do I get to the entire nation, right? That was the progression mentally that you were going through. And then as you started to realize that some of the product offerings you were using to attract people into your world, your ecosystem to recruit, could cross borders. It could cross state lines. Then ultimately it could cross national lines too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's keep going down this path, because the reason why I want to go down this is the listeners that are going to hear this may be considering stepping into the coaching space too. You and I both know that there are many people out there that have value to provide to people, though maybe stuck in a vertical that they don't want to be in, and maybe have challenges both mentally, physically, maybe even monetarily to step out of that vertical and step into a passion-oriented space such as coaching. So walk us through your path. So now, successful team leader, and you got a job offer, remember?
Yeah.
You got a job offer. And then I remember you coming back saying, okay, let's really talk about the opportunity inside of coaching. So share a little bit of that story.
Yeah. So, well, it was that path, right? I had realized that I wasn't in the spot that would take me where I wanted to go. I knew that much. And it was looking for how do we solve all these problems we've identified? And so the opportunity was to go to the next level, right? The opportunity was get out of your small geography, get into a much bigger one. And it was a great opportunity, particularly within the ecosystem that I was operating. But it still had a lot of those other limitations, right? It wasn't solving for all of my issues. It wasn't solving for the lifestyle aspect. It wasn't completely freeing me up. And so ultimately it came down to that. It came down to that bet of like, if we're going to do a lifestyle by design, like, let's really do it. That would have solved the monetization issue, would have opened up a little bit more, but it didn't solve the holistic thing.
Right.
Right. And so that was the big jump. I think one of the things that I probably, for better or worse, do differently than most people is when I decide to move, I burn the boats. Right. And that was actually how that story played out. I had burned the boat from I didn't even get out of the boat before I set it on fire in the team leader role. But I've operated that way so much in my life. And I'm so blessed to have an amazing wife who believes in me and believes that all these moves are for the right reason. So I quit the job without having the next thing. I got the job offer, and it was sort of between coaching and that job offer. But then it was, the more I thought about it, the more it was like, well, the only way we're going to solve all these things we want in life is to have total control over it. And really, I just believe in the model. Everyone has something they can teach somebody. Everyone has a set of experiences that have brought them from where they were to where they are. And those are then valuable to someone who is where they were. We talk about this all the time that, your coaching client is you before you were you now.
That's right.
Right. And so I just believe in that model. I believe that the internet and social media are still early in their disruption of, institutional business. And so for me, I'm just going to bet on all that. I'm going to bet on the direction things are going, that I can bring real value. I've proven that to people. And I can leverage the tools that are available now to reach as wide of an audience as I possibly can and monetize that to achieve the life that I want.
So I want to go back and let's let these listeners hear this again. So the idea was you actually created a vision, right? The vision was time with family. Many, many, many of us all feel that same way, though we don't always act on it. And you acted on it. And as you said, you burned a boat before you saw the other boat, but then the other boat quickly arrived in the harbor.
Yep.
And then not only when that boat arrived in the harbor, there was still, an internal whispering saying, go check out coaching, because you were already doing this with some of your other agents that you were leading.
Yep.
And then it was a commitment to the coaching space, right? So most people, well, I would say most people, we have experienced people when they step in the coaching space that they will keep their survivor job and then do coaching on the side. Actually, when I wrote the white paper for I Love Coaching, that's who my avatar was, is someone that was who wanted to moonlight in the coaching space.
Right.
Though you decided to go full into the coaching world. And walk us through that path. Actually, before we step into your coaching experience, you've got now a ship in the harbor that's saying, hey, get on this boat. We're going to take you places. And you decided not to do that. So share with us the mindset of stepping into a new coaching vertical, or a new vertical that you haven't really experienced before in a monetization space or even a business creation space. What were some of the limiting beliefs or the imposter syndromes that you were going through?
Yeah, well, I think I don't know that I suffered as much as many people do with limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome, but not because
I agree with that, by the way.
But that
I've always loved your confidence, which is good. I think that's why we've got along so well.
Well, and it's from experience, not from hubris, right?
Yeah, it's not ego.
I've jumped out of the boat many times before and found a way to land, and just my belief in providence, allows me to make that jump. But what it really came down to, when you're asking the question of, you're sitting there looking at these options. One is a continuation of what you're doing, but a lot more money, much bigger territory, a natural next step, right?
Right.
Or complete uncertainty of moving into online coaching space.
Yep. Which was basically believing in yourself, right?
Yeah, and believing
the product that you were following,
and that you could, and more importantly, so the decision kind of came down to the lifestyle, right? The decision. I'm big on, I don't know if I could turn my camera to capture it, but I'm big on, remember that you're going to die. Remember that this is finite. I have a poster over here on my wall, and every week I check off, the weeks of my life towards my, certain death at the end. And I actually had a couple years ago highlighted sort of all the summers I was going to get with the girls, assuming that if I do a good job, my wife and I do a good job raising them, by the time they're 18, 19, they'll start living their own successful lives and be going to college. Not that we won't see them again, but we certainly won't be able to tell them where to be. And so that just always stuck with me, was you don't have a lot of time. You can't wait until you're, 65 to spend time with your kids. They're gone. And so that was the thing that the other opportunity didn't solve. There was no way. The other opportunity meant being in the car every week. The other opportunity meant being at conferences 4 times a year. The other opportunity meant, leaving them to pursue the business goal. And I wasn't willing to make that sacrifice.
Right. So now, before we get into the launching of your real estate world, I'm sorry, your coaching world, let's back up just a week ago, because now we're into this. Are we a year and a half into coaching now?
Well, yeah, a little bit more than a year. Not more than a year.
Okay. So we're going to tell that story of this past year plus, though you just did what with the family?
Yeah. So we lived the vision, at least phase one of it. We spent the past month in Vancouver, entirely because I made the jump to coaching, and I could take my family while my girls are on summer vacation. I could take them to Vancouver, and we rented a condo there, and I had a co-working office and went in there for, 8 hours a week, to take my coaching calls and spend the rest of my time, with my kids and hiking and enjoying beautiful weather and the town of Vancouver. And that's not possible outside of this space.
Yeah, I agree. So I want everyone to hear that. So we're a year plus into his coaching journey, and he's already achieved the highlighted portions of his life countdown of spending quality time with his family. And ultimately, that's Dan's driving factor, right? That is your driving factor of what specifically is important to you, and it's family time. And so you capitalize on that because of the freedom that you created in the coaching space, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So let's back up. Now, Dan made the jump from the real estate world to the leadership world to burning one boat to stepping in or having a boat at the harbor to saying, no, I'm not going to get in that boat. I'm actually going to go into this coaching world. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to bet on a system, and I'm now going to do it. Now, inside of the blueprint we have that inside of our community, the blueprint says, follow this, and within 90 days, you should have at least 10 one-on-one clients, or at least the equivalent of doing $13,500 a month if you're charging 10 clients $1,350 per month, $13,500. So Dan sent me a text on day 90. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Day 90. And he's like, hey, I just want to let you know, and now I'm paraphrasing here and totally making up some of this, that you might need to increase the $1,350 because I just blew it out of the water. Right? Yeah.
Well, and here's this is something I haven't, expressly said to you before, but I wouldn't have been, your system works 100%. And I made the jump because I knew I wanted to go there, and I was willing to bet on myself to figure it out. I was successful because I didn't have to figure it out. I was successful because you had the roadmap, and what you've built now is, version 10 of this. It's infinitely more detailed and stronger than it was when we started, but the core was there. And having a system of going, here's how you're going to get appointments. Here's how what you're going to say on the intro call. Here's how you set up the deep dive call. Here's how you convert people. I really, and this is rare for me. It was one of the only times probably in my professional career where I just followed the playbook.
Right. Yeah. And you did. You actually followed the playbook. The playbook was written out for you. And here's the neat part of this whole story is the playbook was not my playbook. The playbook was a playbook that I followed from another coach who probably followed from another coach. And I just put my own little spin on it, like you've now put your own little spin on it. And that's what we get to do in this world is build systems, build models that are duplicatable. And then we just help other people do it.
Yep.
If you really think about it. Right? The whole problem solution cycle, which you were alluding to, is first part of the blueprint is we teach you to make your achievement list, and your achievement list tells you where your problem solution cycles are. And as Dan said, then you go back and now you're just coaching your former self because that's who your avatar is.
Yeah.
So, okay, now fast forward to where you are right now.
Yeah.
And tell us about the business right now. Tell us about everything that you've created. Tell us what you're loving about the coaching space.
Yeah, well, what I love about it is still the same thing. It's a pure version of I like to help people. I think I bring value, and I can be compensated for that. Right? It is a very pure relationship. Mm-hmm. My goal is to help people. I help people sometimes for free with free content we create, with free coaches and training and free workshops. Sometimes it's programs that we offer that are paid. Sometimes it's in a group coaching format. Sometimes it's one-on-one. We found all these different ways to solve people's problems. But at the end of the day, what I love about it is it's just that pure relationship.
Right.
I can help people. I find people who I connect with, and we have this sort of mutual relationship. They are clear about what they want. I'm clear that I have a way to get them there, and I can get paid for it as sort of like a bonus. Now we've built that. We've evolved a group coaching program, which is increasingly becoming our focus for a number of reasons. One, lifestyle, to be completely honest. Once you get a little taste of only having to, be in front of the computer for 2 days a week, it becomes very addicting.
Very addicting. Well, pause there for a second. Let's just tell them. So in Vancouver, and this is probably your life in general, but you work 2 days a week and you're with the family the rest of 5, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's my coaching schedule is Mondays and Tuesdays. In Vancouver, it was honestly even better because of the time shift. My schedule is built East Coast time. So we were on Pacific time, which is time shifted all of my coaching. So I would wake up early, get to the co-working space at 6 a.m. And by 10 a.m. Pacific time, I was done with my workday and spent the whole day with the family. But here it's the same thing, right? Monday and Tuesday are dedicated to coaching calls, and I'm in the office in front of the desk. The rest of the week, it's not that I don't work. I work on other projects and things, but I have complete time flexibility and control my schedule. So it's that lifestyle factor is huge.
Absolutely. Love that. All right, let's do this. So 12 months from now. So we know where we were 12 months ago. 12 months from now, where are you?
Yeah. So you and I have been working a lot on this, sort of lately. For me, coming off of this vacation is okay. We realized part one of this dream, right? How do we expand that? How do we take it to the next level? So 12 months from now, I think the idea is that we'll have a group coaching program. It's impacting over 300 real estate agents across the country. It'll be doing about $1 million of coaching revenue from that model, and it will be extremely time compressed. I found for me that group coaching format it is much more enjoyable, fits some of my skill sets. It's very different than one-to-one coaching. Not that I don't enjoy the one-on-one, I do.
Right.
But that relationship is bigger. And again, my sort of driving factor is I love to help real estate agents for a number of reasons. I want to impact as many as I possibly can. And that format is geared more towards teaching and, presentations and things that I really enjoy the creative aspect of. So that's the focus and what we're going to continue building.
You know what's really neat about what you just said there is, so you're building this group coaching program. And what I want people to hear here is a couple things. You can go down the path of coaching one-on-one. You can go down the path of coaching group. You can go down the path of creating evergreen courses that live out there and you can sell them as products. Though what's going to be really neat to watch Dan's transition here is as he stepped into this space of large group coaching. What you're going to do, Dan, is you're going to create the opportunity for one-on-ones, and not that we're driven overly by the price, though money does solve a lot of problems. You can actually raise your one-on-one price because of now proximity to you, right?
Absolutely. And I don't know that, again, for me, the move to group is about impact,
right? And
being able to impact more people at a higher level. And that will allow me to have the flexibility to do the group. My suggestion to anyone sort of looking at this decision, the one-to-one is invaluable because where you actually get to me, it's like the laboratory. But I know I'll never really completely walk away from one-to-one coaching. The pricing will change. I'll be more selective. I'll have fewer people on the calendar, but I'll never walk away because it's the laboratory. Because you can't get into the same relationship, right? The group coaching relationship is very different than the one-to-one relationship. When you're one-to-one, you're in that person's business. My one-to-one clients, we're texting all week long. How's that thing? We talked about this project. How's it going? Send me a draft, which I love doing because, like I said, it's like a laboratory for me. You're going to see, okay, what are their problems, and really get to understand them and figure out solutions. You get to experiment a little bit. When you're at the group coaching, it's like, hey, give me the thing that we know works, right? I'm not willing to experiment. I'm not here to experiment. I'm here for a solution. And that's great too. And so, yeah, they go together and there's different aspects to them. And,
yeah,
and
for sure.
Other people that are in the I Love Coaching Champions group who love one-on-one and don't like the inverse of my preferences. And that's awesome too.
Yep, totally is. So what would you say to someone, a couple different fold, right? So someone that is similar to your story, thinking about stepping into the coaching space, though maybe has some fear or anxiety around leaving a survivor job, and or what would you say to a coach who's with a coaching company, maybe a more dependent type focus,
sure,
in comparison to our community approach where they wouldn't have to leave their dependent, but they could be a part of the community? What would you say to either of those two people based on your experiences?
Well, that's a great question. Let me answer it this way. If you're unsure if you can survive, look at your coaching space on social media. There are people's time and attention is there, and it's still that the amount of time and attention spent by your target audience on social media is still underappreciated. Even though we know social media is big and it's, the changing force, I think people still underappreciate it. We're also used to being consumers of social media and not creators or benefactors of that. And so if you're unsure if you can make it, spend some time there and see how many people in your target audience, people you would like to build your coaching business to service, are there, right? How many views, how many comments? And then once you understand that opportunity, I think you can remove that scarcity mindset, right? That's the key. Key is to go, wow, there's a lot of people on this one platform who really are looking for answers to, and I have some of those answers. And then the next thing becomes, well, is there space? And the answer is 100% yes.
Yes.
Plenty
of space.
There's plenty. Ultimately, everyone could end up having a business because you don't know who you will connect with, right? And I do that all the time. You have an intro call with someone, and you just go, I don't think we're not connecting, right? You're not for me. You should go find a coach who is. for you. Let me send you some names, but because of that personal aspect, there's room for everyone in the space.
Right. So what would you say to the other coach that is with a dependent company that maybe has fear of stepping out on their own or fear of being a part of a community outside of their dependent company?
Yeah, first it ties into that point, right? If you're in a coaching company whose value proposition to you is their distribution network, right? Their ability to book you clients, I would follow the same advice. Go online, see who's really influential with your clients, right? I will argue with anyone in any type of corporate organization like that social media influencers are far more influential than anyone with a title within your organization.
Agreed.
Just the way it is today. And it has to do quite simply with something that you teach in the intensive, right? Which is time, right? Trust is a fact. Time is a variable in building trust.
Mm-hmm.
And when I put a small video, a 90-second video on social media, and you start to see the amount of watch time, that racks up on that, you get 1,000 views, you're talking about, 20, 30 hours of watch time. That's building trust. And you can't do that in person. So if you're the leader of a brokerage and you're sitting in a brokerage, you can't spend as much time with your own agents as I can on social media. And the ability to target things and do all this other stuff. So I think the value of a lot of those traditional distribution networks is much lower than it has been historically because of social media. And I think that's a big factor.
Yeah.
The second thing I would just say is bet on yourself. You're paying a huge, if you're part of a coaching organization that takes a big split out of your coaching revenue, you're paying a big premium for sales and marketing, allegedly.
Yep. Yep. And we can leave it at that, which is, that could be a great topic of conversation for another podcast, though. I think at the end of the day, I believe that last statement 100% to be true, that if you're not betting on yourself and you're not paying attention to the dollars and cents that are going out, wake up. That's all I got to say is wake up.
And it doesn't have to be something that's so, it's not personal, it's just business. It's a value proposition, right? In the real estate world, it's exactly the same. There are different brokerages. They have different compensation structures with their agents. The question any real estate agent should ask themselves is really simple. I'm paying X dollars to my brokerage. Am I getting X value? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, you should look to find a place where those two things go together. Some people decide they want to pay less and get less. Some people say, I would gladly pay more if I'm getting more.
Mm-hmm.
There's no right or wrong answers to that. It's just a value proposition question. Are you getting the value you're paying for? And if no, you should move on. And I think that anyone in a coaching organization should ask the same thing. If you're giving up 60% of the coaching revenue, what does that look like? You have 10 clients at $1,000 each. You're talking about, $5,000, $6,000 a month. You could run a lot of ads with that.
You definitely could. You could do a lot. You could rent a lot of condos in Vancouver.
Yeah. Well, also you could just have more of your time back.
That's right.
Right. You could, if you're doing, so we could run the math out on that. Right. So it's 5 hours. If you're doing 10 clients, $1,000 a month, 30 minutes each. Right. That's 5 hours a week of your time. You could, if you're paying half of that out, you get half your time back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Live your life.
Yeah. No, speaking of value, I wanted to change the conversation here back to you about value. So talk to us about how the listeners can discover your value. How can they get engaged in any of your offerings, whether that's group coaching, one-on-one, your ecosystem? Tell them where they can go find you. Tell them how to get involved.
Yeah, the best place if you're a real estate agent and you're not hitting the goals. And what I mostly focus on are people who know that they should be doing things to get repeat referral business out of their database or through social media. You need to get the basic blocking and tackling in place. Best way I can help you is go to my Instagram at Dan Demott. Click around. I have a bunch of freebies on there. You can put a couple different comments on any of the posts, and you'll get an email with our free lead generation guide and our database marketing guide. Take that stuff. It's some of my best content. I give it away for free. If you use it, great. Send me a message. Let me know how it goes. If you're struggling to implement it, reach out. We'll book an appointment for an intro call and see if it makes sense for you to do our group coaching program or our one-on-one coaching.
Love it. Perfect. Excellent. So there you have it, Mr. Dan Demott. You've heard his story from start to where he is now. Go follow him. Go pay attention. You never know where he's going to be in the world for a month, 2 months, a quarter. Who knows? But I know where he's going to go, and that's straight to the top. He's going to hit this next goal, and I'm excited about that. So, Dan, thanks for being on the I Love Coaching podcast, and I'll see you on Friday at our Champions Call.
Thanks, Adam.
You got it. So thanks again for listening. If you guys like this, go leave us a review. Go give us a like. If you want to hear different topics, go ahead and DM me at Adam R. Roach on Instagram. You want to book a call because you're an interested coach? Come do that. Book a call with Adam.com or book a call with ILC.com, and you can come talk to us as well. Thanks for listening. See you guys. Bye-bye.